Hello everyone, today I'm going to be tackling music and the rising field of artificial intelligence. It is certainly an odd topic to discuss, but I am sure by the end of this presentation you're going to know more about music and artificial intelligence than you did before it, and hopefully you're going to enjoy listening to it as much as I did making it. So first of all, I think it's safe to start with the question, what is artificial intelligence? So broadly speaking, artificial intelligence, or AI as it's called, is the intelligence exhibited by machines. One formal definition is that it is the wide-ranging branch of computer science concerned with building smart machines capable of performing tasks that require human intelligence or analysis. You probably heard of the term artificial intelligence a lot online or in the media. And you probably think it's some sort of computer or a robot or even a machine. In simple terms, however, it can be considered as a software that you either train or that it trains itself to do specific tasks ranging from finding a cat in a picture to a self-driving car. So there's a lot of research in the field of artificial intelligence, and it really impacts lots of fields. These fields can include medical diagnosis. For example, artificial intelligence can help doctors find if these patients have cancer or not. It can be in the field of stock trading. For example, if you're a business or economics major, you might have heard that there are tools that use artificial intelligence to predict whether the stock will go up or down. Artificial intelligence also power robotics, which people get mixed up with, but they're actually separate fields that complement each other. It also helps in agriculture. For example, you can find whether you can use AI to figure out if you can pick the crops yet or not. And you can use artificial intelligence in literally any field where you can pick patterns. Perhaps less popular in the contribution of AI is in the artistic fields that need creativity and the human experience. Nevertheless, today I'm going to show you that this might not be the case in the future. So, have you ever, if you can see the picture on the right, have you ever heard of this or watched this movie before? If you haven't, I really seriously recommend it because it's a very, very interesting movie about starting Benedict Cumberbatch, who plays the role of Alan Turing. So Alan Turing was the man that encrypted that broke the encryption Nazi code that is called Enigma, helping the Allied forces win World War II and saving millions and millions of lives. And he is considered the father of modern computing and even the father of the computer itself, which, by the way, was called the Turing machine during the 1950s. So after a decade after doing the heroic things that he did in World War II, he changed the history everything that we know. He shaped everything that we know today with one simple question. That simple question is, can machines think? So basically, he founded the idea of artificial intelligence before anyone has ever thought of it before. After that, he made a paper called Computing Machinery and Intelligence in the 1950s, which has laid the foundation of AI that we know today. He also created the Turing Test, which is basically a test that can help us figure out whether this AI is good or not. For example, if we are building an AI that can help us mimic an AI that can mimic a human. So the Turing test would tell you that if humans can be fooled to thinking that they are talking to another human, this AI passes the test. Whether if it doesn't, it's not good enough. So this brings us to, this has literally this literally was the start of the field of artificial intelligence as we know it today. And many things has happened ever since the 1950s. For example, in 1956, the phrase artificial intelligence was coined by John McCarthy in the conference called Dartmouth Summer Research Project on Artificial Intelligence. It was a conference which defined the scope and goals of artificial intelligence that we know today. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue beat the world champion in chess, which was an extraordinary event that was never seen before. It was never thought that a computer can beat the world champion in chess. In 2012, Andrew Ng, the founder of Google's deep learning project, was figured out how to basically find a cat in videos without knowing what a cat is. So this is actually was another milestone in the field of artificial intelligence that we know today. In 2014, Google made its first self-driving car. And in 2016, Google created an AI that beat the world champion in Go. Go is basically a much more complicated game than chess itself. So that was very remarkable in the field. So now I'm going to be talking to you about AI and music history. As I mentioned before, it is you can notice the pattern of how everything that has been done in artificial intelligence has been applied to fields that require analytical skills. For example, in chess or Go, or any of the examples that I mentioned before. The reason you can't find artificial intelligence in other fields that needs creativity, such as the arts and music, is because they require a human aspect, or at least we thought so all these years. So to start, I would like to take you back to Alan Turing, who is in the picture. This is the actual photo of him. He was actually the first person ever, by the way, to record music on a computer. So I want you to imagine that, like, this man laid the foundation to not only building the computer, but the music industry that we know today. It was recovered, by the way, if you would like to hear it online, it was recovered by a group of researchers in New Zealand 65 years after it was created, which is something that is remarkable. And after that, which was in the 1950s, as I mentioned, you can basically divide everything that we accomplished into three phases. Or I thought it was very convenient to do so. The first phase, it was probably in the late 50s to the 60s, where a group of researchers in the University of Illinois programmed an AI to play the string quartet, the first work completely written by artificial intelligence ever. In 1960s, a group of researchers wrote the first paper ever on the algorithmic music composing, which was called the Ural one. The second phase can be considered as the breakthroughs, where in the 50s and the 60s, we wrote papers and we tried to imagine what we can do. During the 70s and the 80s, we actually reached breakthroughs that would change the way how we think about music itself and computing. So in the 1975, a group of MIT researchers created a music AI that enables musicians to play freely on an acoustic keyboard, while the machine infers the meters, the tempo, and the note durations. In the 1980s, David Cobb from the University of California developed an EMI, which is an experiment in music intelligence. The system was based on a generative model to analyze existing music and to create new pieces based on them. This, by the way, which you will see later on, was is the core of how AI creates music. We will see that later on. And now, for the last phase, we reach current research. Initiatives such as Google Magneta, Sony Flow Machines, IBM Watson Beat, these are all the big companies are trying to break into the music industry using their unimaginable technologies that they have. And they are actually creating big progress that I'm very interested in showing you by the end of this presentation. So here's an interesting question to you. Do you think artificial intelligence is a threat to musicians? Do you think there's a point in time where you're going to listen to music that is entirely created by a machine or a software? Well, it is understandable to see why people might be threatened by AI, especially musicians. So the capabilities of AI has created tension among musicians and producers communities who first view it as a threat to their jobs. However, AI music startups believe that AI is a creative tool that frees musicians up to make more and better art. Although AI can outperform humans in areas such as video backtracking or soundtracks that can help you sleep, and these can be adjusted by the tone and the frequency of the music, it is not capable of generating great original music without human input. And this is because we humans follow a collective subjective way in perceiving music, and which can collectively, like, the thing about it is that we can't collectively agree on what good music is. So the AI can't find the best possible music that it can find. I like this quote which I included. It's by a company called Music Alley. It says, currently the best AI music is just listenable, though usually with human input when it is being created. And we are seriously in an early stage where we can imagine the things that AI can help musicians achieve. So how do you think AI should assist the musicians? Well, we can level AI music from level 0 to 4, and it can be up to the musicians to allow them to figure out how they want AI to help them. Level 0 is artists create music without any assistance from AI, which is what we do today. We can level up from that to level 1, where artists use artificial intelligence for sound processing, but not composing. Level 2 is artificial intelligence is used to assist artists in composing music. Level 3 is the music is created by AI, but performed by a human. And level 4 is the music is created and performed by AI, which is something that you might be seeing in the future in record labels, where they are actually, instead of signing a musician, they are signing an artificial intelligence that creates music. And it is really up to the industry to decide how music is going to play a key role in this. So this is basically how AI is going to help the music industry grow in the best possible way. So now to reaching the most important and the most interesting part of this presentation is, how does actually AI create music? And it's something that's actually very, very fascinating. The thing about creating music through artificial intelligence is that it goes beyond what we know in music theory. It does not follow a certain structure. It does not know about melody, pitch, tone, texture, or tempo the way that we do. Maybe it, and maybe that's not something bad to have at our disposal. While we as humans distinguish through music through our ears, we rarely know anything about what happens inside the brain. Similarly, AI does the same thing. We create music in the same way backwards too. So we do not know why certain music appeals to us. We cannot explain the certain flow we get when we're playing or creating a piece of music. It goes out of our brains, then we judge it through our ears. And AI works the same way. I'm basically going to explain to you briefly in a non-technical way how it works. So I want you to imagine a black box, just as the one that you are seeing in the screen, with two sides, on two different sides. There are holes. Basically, you give this black box data, lots and lots and lots of data, or in our case, you give it musical compositions. So let's create together an AI that mimics the music compositions of Bach or Beethoven. So basically, you would give this black box all the compositions that Bach or Beethoven has created, and it basically trains itself to recognize the patterns from what you gave it. So we don't know exactly what happens inside of the black box because in most cases it is turned everything that you give it is turned into mathematical equations and functions, and it works on probability and statistics and weights. You basically leave the box for a certain time, whenever you want. You can just tell it to give you what it has, and basically it outputs from the other side what it has recognized, and it creates a new composition of music from these patterns that it found from all the composition you have gave it. This is basically a simple explanation of how AI generates music. So as I previously mentioned in the previous slide, there is a black box that takes the input, all the compositions of, for example, Bach, Mozart, Beethoven, or Chopin, and it basically tries to find patterns of, this box tries to find patterns in and the style of these composers. Basically, this black box is actually, in scientific terms, it's called a neural network. It's basically a node that tries to mimic the neurons of the brain. Basically, this neural network works with probability and statistics, automation, machine learning algorithms, and it feeds on data. Like the more data you give it, like this is actually in the field of artificial intelligence and data science, data is very, very, very important. And the way you give it the data is even more and more important. So here, basically, you can see a more accurate in-depth look of what a neural network is. It's basically, there is an input layer and an output layer, and in between there is all the hidden layers that we can't actually see because they are represented in equations and mathematical functions, and so on and so forth. So I would like to end this presentation with a final question. First of all, have you ever heard of the Beatles? If you have not, they are a very, very famous American band that are not performing, of course, now. I think it was in the 80s. So the question is, what if we can bring back the Beatles to create a song, a modern song for us today using artificial intelligence? And this highlights one of the key aspects of artificial intelligence in music, which is, can we replicate the style of musicians without having them actually create anything from, like, can we recognize patterns of their style from everything that they have ever gave us, like all the compositions or musics that they have already produced. And luckily, a company under Sony, the Sony company, it actually created an AI that replicates the style of the Beatles, which I'm going to show it to you right now.
It turns me on. Good day, sunshine in the backseat. Girl, I wish that road could never stop. Down on the ground, the rainbow led me to the sun. Please, mother, drive and then play it again. From
So this song was actually created entirely by an artificial intelligence software, including the lyrics and the music and everything from top to bottom, which is actually very, very amazing, considering this is actually something like someone can actually enjoy, this basically concludes our presentation.